And it's not just me. Anybody can do this and learn to tune into their heart, clear their mind, open up to all the resources available to them in the world, in the natural world, in the spirit world. It's a spiritual practice as well for me. It's not a religion, but it's a spiritual practice. And I like to promote that because it's not for, quote, special people. It's for all of us.
Well, here we are, Heart Mind Happy Hour number 9 with Monica Augustine. I am so excited to have you here. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you. I'm so excited also.
Yeah, well, welcome everyone. This is, as I said, number 9. And this is Heart Mind Alchemy, where we unite ancient wisdom with modern science to help people get a clear, calm mind. And oh no, I've got there, don't need things pinging in the background. A clear, calm mind, and explore science and wisdom. We kind of go all over the map. Meditation, it's a ton of fun. And I'm your host, Holly Copeland. And I am here today with Monica Augustine. Monica is a intuitive coach, and she is a Reiki practitioner. And just really excited to have you. Welcome very much, Monica.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Holly.
Yeah, and a friend, a really good friend.
Yay.
Great, yay, so much fun. So let's see. Well, I thought a really nice place to start. So today we're going to talk about, Monica's going to tell us about the work that she does and guide us through kind of strengthening and trusting your intuition and tuning up your intuition, which is just I love this topic so much because I'm somebody who's, always sort of felt empathic and intuitive, but, have never had any training on it, just kind of life experience of sort of learning to read, situations and people and, whatever. So the work that you do is just so interesting to me to, and I'd love at some point to take one of your classes and learn to strengthen that more. But this work that you do to help people really tap into and learn to strengthen and trust their own intuition, I just think it's wonderful. I'm really excited to hear from you and hear more about the work you do. Yeah, so I thought a really great place to start would be to tell a little bit about how you got into intuitive life coaching. And why, why is intuition so important to you, and working with people on intuition so important to you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I got into intuition training, I would say, like teaching it and learning it for myself. As a young girl, I remember maybe the ages of 9 and 10, between 9 and 10, that I felt so much around me all the time. I could feel so much, and I would hear a lot as well. And there's different kinds of clairs in intuition, and the people that are into this type of field, they know those clairs as a name, like clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant. As a young girl, I would hear a lot. So claircognizant, I didn't know that had a name or anything, but at that time, of course, and I felt a lot from people. But at that time, my family members and just my mom and dad, and I didn't realize at that time that it wasn't me. When you're younger or just any age, and you don't realize, you're not aware that you're an empath or you have very strong clairvoyant skills or clairsentient skills. You just assume, because as little kids, when we're young, we just assume everything revolves around us. So you're just like, oh, it must be me, and then as you grow up, if no one really helps you understand that, you just continuously think still, it must be me. Okay, so going into it, as a young girl, I was very empathic and clairvoyant and clairaudient. Those are my 3, and they're still the 3 that are my strongest, I think. But I would feel so much for my dad a lot. He's passed now, and so is my mom. Rest in peace, both of them. But my dad, you know, there's a lot of things I won't go into today, but that my dad struggled with. He had a good heart. There's a lot of things he struggled with. And I just even remember, actually young as 5, just feeling for him. Like I couldn't even tell it wasn't me. And we didn't talk about that type of thing in my family, at that time. And I grew up strong Catholic, and those types of things we didn't talk about. Uh, but I remember just sitting next to him and just feeling everything he was feeling. And I remember even then I would say to dad on the couch when my mom was cooking, are you okay? Are you going to be okay? And I remember him saying, stop asking me that. Why are you asking me that? And I was like, I don't know. I wish I knew more then. But anyway, I think at a young age, I could really feel that. And there was a lot of really hard things that happened growing up. Um, there were a lot of good things too, but there's a lot of abuse and things like that. And so I think that really opened me up in many ways, because then you are constantly at a young age, you're in survival mode as well, which I feel I've grown out of that, but it took a lot of hard work to grow out of that, and awareness and practice and trust. But at a young age, my antennas were very heightened. Um, what's around me, what's my surroundings, what's happening, who walked in. Like I was always like kind of like ready to go. Um, but so in a certain way, those harder things brought a lot of gifts too, which I think harder things can do that. So to fast forward quite a few years, I I noticed a lot of dreams of mine that would come true like the next day. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, and this is cool, amazing. Some of them were fun and just like, whoa, and just random. But some of them were hard, like things that hard happened. And I'm like, that really happened and came to fruition. It's very interesting. I know that happens to a lot of people. But then, I ran a business, which I think you knew, Holly, a singing school in Boulder, Colorado, for about 20 years. And I just absolutely loved it. I loved the kids, mainly kids and teens, but I did work with adults. And I just loved it so much. I thought I would never, ever leave. And I just loved teaching. I loved the kids, the teens, everybody. And it was a lot about empowering your voice,
Mhm.
and trusting your voice and empowering that in people. Um, but I did that for a long time. And then all of a sudden, really, I'm skipping a lot of information, but I had these 3 dreams in succession in 1 week. And one was this, and I was already thinking about something was, what's the word? Stirring, stirring inside of me of
Mhm.
change, but I wasn't sure what that change was. It was like, do I grow the school? Is that what I'm wanting? Do I get more teachers? It's like I couldn't tell exactly what it is. So I started tuning in more, and I pray a lot. So I was praying for help. And then all of a sudden, I had this medicine woman dream. This beautiful African American woman. She came to me first and she said, Monica, you need to change your ways. This was intense, but or you're gonna die. And that, I know that sounds intense. But I was like, wow, I think she was trying to get my attention. Obviously, I was like, okay. So I woke up and it just was in the forefront of my mind. And I didn't know what she meant. I thought she might have meant worrying, because I've gotten a lot better, but I can definitely worry about things too much. So I thought, okay, but then the next one came the next night, and it was this man, uh, older man. He had no teeth, and he had a cup of tea, and he didn't care at all about his appearance, like zero. It's like, it wasn't his thing. And he smiled and sipping his tea, and he was like, Monica, you're not listening. And if you don't change your ways, you're going to die. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the second time. So then I said, okay, I think this is my imagination. So I went to sleep. The next night, this, this beast, actually, I didn't see the beast, but it came through the forest, and it was like, for some reason, we had a house in the forest. which we don't right now, but came through and shaking the trees almost like King Kong or something. And it was like, you aren't listening. And it was, I mean, like the ground, Holly, it was like thundering. It was rumbling. And it was like, said the same thing the others said. And
Mm.
then I tuned into my heart, and it was like, you need to leave what you're doing.
Mm.
I don't know why. I think it came so strong because my biggest fear, honestly, at that time, which sounds super codependent, but it's also because I love the kids so much. I did not want to disappoint them. It still brings tears to my eyes, but I think just disappointing people, I think was my hugest fear. Um, it wasn't money, that we wouldn't have an income, my side of the income, like we shared before, Holly, like it was third place, you know, it was in there, but it was more like disappointing people it was terrifying for me. I didn't want to let anybody down. I was terrified. And that they came, those three said, you know, you have to do this. So the next day I called all the families. I spoke to them one by one. I told them how much I love them. I need to do this right now. I didn't go into all my dreams with everybody
Mhm.
because I figured they would think I think people might have understood, but it's just too much to share with everybody. But it's also, I don't know that it was appropriate, but I didn't know how to explain to them that I had to move on. And some of the kids were just devastated because I'm very consistently there for them. Anyway, I've had many things kind of like that throughout my life as a young girl, but I didn't make a big deal about it. I didn't necessarily dismiss it, but I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't talk about it. But then long story short, I sold the school. It's thriving even more than when I was doing it with this wonderful woman named Kari and teachers. And she's just really grown it into a well, a lot bigger music school. And it's just doing great. Um, but it took a while, and I got into intuition. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm somewhat semi-retired, right?
Mhm.
Um, and um, I didn't know. And my husband, who you know, said, Monica, you're so intuitive. Why don't you take this class in Boulder? It's called clairvoyant class, Psychic Horizons. And I was just like, oh my God, that is just so woo-woo for me. I couldn't even begin to tell people what I was doing. It was terrifying. Like, I feel like I was in the closet. It was actually very scary. I thought they would, um, like, like, um, just, I didn't know how people would receive it. And
Mhm.
it's scary for me. I wanted to always be comfortable for people and make people feel comfortable. And I don't think that would make everybody comfortable because if they don't understand things, sometimes they think it's scary for people. But it turned out to be extremely amazing. And like I learned so much. And it also then started reminding me that I've been doing this for a long time before the class. It was more deliberate, I guess, and more like I'm conscious. I'm doing this, and then and then the other students in the class were like, Monica, you know, you're really good at this. This is something maybe you should do. Because when I would read them, we'd practice on one another. Things would just be like, oh my God, how did that? I laughed a lot because at first, I think my ego was probably involved in it, Holly, because it was like I had a lack of confidence in myself. So then when I was like, things were happening and they would say, how did you know that? How did you see that? I was just doing what the teacher said to do, basically, you know, but then as I learned and I realized over time, this is my fifth year now doing this, 5.5 years, I guess, learning and growing and helping others. Um, but I realized this could really help people and 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 help them learn to tap into their own energy. And it's not just me. Anybody can do this and learn to tune into their heart, clear their mind, and have more open up to all the resources available to them in the world, in the natural world, in the spirit world. And it's a spiritual practice as well for me. It's not a religion, but it's a spiritual practice, and it's open to everybody, and we're all made the same. And I like to promote that because it's not for quote special people. It's for all of us.
Mhm.
And maybe some people might have stronger connection to it for whatever reason, but I think everybody has the resources available to them.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this now um, for about 5.5 years. First year was a lot of training, and the first next 6 months was a lot of complimentary sessions, I'd say. And then my husband was my Reiki teacher, and then that just opened up a whole healing. Uh, I'm forever grateful for Reiki. I feel it's very connected to God and, in my experience, Jesus, and a lot of spiritual um, um, enlightened beings. And I feel like it just healed so much of my abuse and hurt and woundedness. I'm forever thankful to it and for it. So I use Reiki, intuitive readings, and life coaching to help people.
Yeah.
But did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was a great
I
answer. It's a
talked a lot.
beautiful answer. No, that was great. And your story of the dreams each night and the guides that visited you reminded me, because it's three in succession, reminded me of Christmas Carol is what came to
Oh
mind.
my God, I didn't even think about that.
Make that connection. Yeah.
Oh, I
So
never ever made that connection, but that's a really, really good connection. Maybe it's the threes. Maybe
the
things come in
threes.
threes. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well, and how profoundly those visitations affected the course of your life, which, I think what I hear you saying is like this, I mean, your whole experience from your whole life, but like that in particular, by being open to that message of those guides that came in, and really what you're doing is tapping into the larger, underlying consciousness that we're all part of and connected to, this pure consciousness. And so, to me, the way I see your work is like you're just opening up those channels so you get more information to guide your life in, in really positive ways.
yeah,
Um,
that's a beautiful way to describe that, Holly. And it's it's so true. And I think at first it was scary for me to open up that much. And
mhm,
trust is a big issue. Maybe not as much as it used to be, but trusting people, trusting myself was a big issue. So opening up and trusting that what's coming through I can trust, and that
mhm,
it's helpful, and also learning to navigate and maneuver, especially when helping other people. It takes a lot of trust, and it takes a lot of being the observer
yeah,
and a neutral perspective, and not having an agenda for anybody. It's an amazing, honestly, like it's what I do for work, but it's also a amazing spiritual practice, because we have to let go to let things happen, and it's really amazing.
yeah. Oh, and we've done so much letting go in the meditation practice. I mean, it's such an important part. So what
Yeah.
you're saying is it actually could facilitate your meditation practice, for example, because you're letting go and trusting in
Yeah.
this different way. Well, I'm really excited to jump in because I know you had some like practical fun things to do with our listeners. So I want to dive in. Um, and what we talked about going through is you sort of described to me, there's sort of four steps. There's, first opening up to your intuition, that you have it and, feeling it, then trusting it, which you just talked about. And for me, that's a big one. Like I'm very much, my little analytical mind likes to come in and be like, you're just making that up. So, trust is huge. And then what you do, open up and trust, then how to interpret that information coming through, and then how you act upon it. So I'm really excited to hear you talk through those different pieces. And for people who are online watching, I do have the message but chat up. So if you type a question and it's convenient for me to get it in, I'll try to get it in. So I see Bill and Sharon and Randy here. It's really exciting to have some friends here. So welcome everybody who's watching us. Please say hi if you're there. It's great. Okay, so tell us first, opening up to your intuition. Where does that begin for you?
So opening up to your intuition, for anybody that it might be new to, or just it's an ongoing practice, is the most important thing to start with. Keeping it simple, and no matter how masterful you get at it, these simple steps are just always key. So opening your heart and clearing your mind. So opening your heart, if some people are like, how do I do that? It's actually just where your heart is, the chakra here, or energy center, whatever words you use, is just fine. But it's just opening it up. Just imagine it open. There's no walls there. It's clear, and you're opening up to receive information. Because the heart has so much intelligence, and it's the heart actually. I don't know this scientifically. I'm not a scientist or a therapist or any of those things. But the heart has so much intelligence, and it bypasses the analytical mind. You go right to the heart, you open the heart, and you clear your mind. Those are the two steps you start with. Okay, so you open your heart, and it feels, just imagine there's just a really open kind of like space in there where you're observing it, and you're feeling it, you're observing it, and you're aware of anything you might hear, feel, sense. And you're dismissing nothing. That's the key word I use with all my sessions and my students is dismiss nothing. Because a lot of times we will ask for things in life, and we will pray or we'll meditate, and it shows up for us, but then we're like, oh, that can't be it. So same thing goes for meditation, but tuning into your intuition. So your heart's open, your mind is clear, and you also want to open up the crown chakra. When you open that up, you're opening it up for clear, pure energy of love and light, and nothing else is welcome. That's what I say. Just open. Someone else might do that different, but I do that. And I also do, like, if you're a Reiki practitioner or you have a prayer system or anything calling in beings of light, I do it before I do any reading or any session, just to surround myself with positive energy and intention. Okay, so our hearts are open, our crown is open, and our mind is clear. And how you do that, what I want you to pretend, and your imagination is key in opening up your intuition, because when you imagine, you are opening up boundaries to the world of energy, and then your intention is important as well, for pure energy. So if you sit in the center of your head, imagine that you're sitting in a chair, and it goes like between here and here, right behind in the middle of your eyebrows, in the center of right between your ears. And imagine there's a chair right in the center of your head. And you imagine and notice everything that shows up. You can close your eyes if you'd like to. But notice everything that shows up in that little room in the center of your head, which is a part of the limbic system, the pineal gland, where there is no thought in the center of your brain. It is a place where you can sit and watch and observe. Okay, so in that chair, it's like a neutral chair. Okay, and it's a safe seat. It's a neutral chair. Your heart's open, your crown's open. Now, this is just a little exercise that I want you guys to do with me. If you need to say a prayer first, feel free to do that, or whatever makes you feel safe. Okay. Now, think of something that you might be having questions about in your life, or just like concerns about, or you're wondering about it, any area of your life, okay? And just imagine that chakra 1 and 2, which is um, below your belly button, both of them are below your belly button. Just imagine that part of your body. You're turning down the dial, closing that chakra, most of it, like 90%, which means you would turn it, for me, I turn it down, I go clockwise, okay? But your heart and your third eye and your crown are open. Now, for everyone listening, go ahead and put a screen, kind of like a movie screen, out in front of you. It's just blank, okay? And you're still in your chair and you're neutral and you're not having any desire to know the answer, to control anything. You're not even hoping for anything. You're just trusting and watching, okay? I'm taking you guys way ahead of the class. Like it took me months to get to this part, but it's safe to do that. And I just want to give you an opportunity to have a skill to take with you. Okay, so now just take 3 buckets of paint. And this is purifying paint. And notice the colors that come up. And you're just going to throw those buckets up on the screen, one at a time. Notice the colors that show up. Notice everything around you without dismissing anything. Notice how you feel as well as we do this. Be aware of your thoughts that cross, like anything that crosses your mind. Just be aware of it. Okay, now that your 3 buckets of paint are up there, now just kind of hose it down with purifying, cleansing water. And under that screen are 2 little levers that dump into a bucket of anything limiting you from seeing, feeling, hearing, or knowing, and connecting with guidance from the collective consciousness, however you want to phrase that, whether you use the words God, love, life, your own higher self, energy, okay? It's totally up to you how you want to use that. But just so always the intention is love, light, peace, and always helping and being of service, okay? So on that screen then, now the levers drop and all the paint and water dump into that bucket. Everything is dropping and draining out into the bucket. That's limiting you from seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing. And then that bucket just drains out, kind of like it's got its own grounding cord that drains into the core of the earth and recycles into something beautiful. And you have a cord also at your tailbone that goes all the way to the cores of the earth and drains out any kind of limiting beliefs or negativity or fears about anything. It drains out as well, constantly draining out so that you're able to see, hear, feel, and be aware. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and just put a flower, any kind of flower, up on the screen. And I want you to make sure you're sitting in your chair and you're trusting, you're open, your heart is open, your mind is clear. Now, I want you to put your question for yourself into that flower, whether it's show me energy surrounding blah, this decision or anything. And I just want you to notice what happens to the flower. You can see it. You can also feel what happens to the flower. And if nothing's happening yet, that's okay. It does take time and practice to quiet the mind and open the heart. These definitely take practice. I kind of just dove right in with you guys. Just notice what's happening to the flower with your question. If it turned into something like a different object, or the flower turned into a different color, or it grew really tall, or it withered away. Basically, what we're doing is we're putting the essence of the energy of that question into the flower, and the flower is reflecting it, the energy that's around that question. Okay? The important thing, really important part, is I'm opening you up to clairvoyance, seeing, feeling, and hearing. Okay? And knowing. Claircognizant is more the crown, the knowing, and the heart. Okay, so this tool is really, really sweet. It's simple. It takes some practice, but continue to watch even as I talk. Just watch the flower. The important thing to remember is to be the observer. Just like you would in meditation, you need to learn to cultivate the observer mind in neutral and not project your own worry, story, fears, anything into it, okay? Because that's when we become afraid. So even if the flower turned to a different color or something that might have brought up a little fear in you, then the next step that we were talking about, Holly, was interpretation. When you go to interpret something, it's a very tricky business because it's easy for us to interpret things from our lens of our own lives and our own history, but we need to take those glasses off and set them down on our table and put on new glasses of new way of seeing. When we're looking for something new, we need to look from new eyes, or we're just going to see the same things. So whatever you're seeing in that flower, you want to ask questions. And as you feel into the flower and the energies that's coming up, you can ask, what is it you're trying to show me? What is it that you're trying to help me understand? You begin to learn to ask different questions. And when I'm doing a reading for someone else or for myself, or it's energy that came from, we'll talk about this later too, Holly, but the natural world, or just seeing someone's name 5 times in like 3 hours, or seeing numbers everywhere, I will say, what are you trying to teach me? What are you trying to communicate to me? And I will listen with an open heart, clear mind, and I'll pay attention. Okay, because for me, the rule is if I see it twice, I start paying attention. So if it's once, I'm like, okay, that was okay. But after twice, 3 times, I start realizing that something is trying to help me or communicate with me. And the way I interpret that is I interpret that in my words as God, love, light, the natural world. I always interpret that as helpers. Okay. Now, we know that it's a positive thing and they're positive helpers by the fruit of it, because a lot of times people can get afraid. And what if it's not a positive energy? Or, well, you can always know that by the fruit of something. If the fruit is helpful and it brings you peace and it brings you clarity, it's positive. Now, if something's telling you, go stand in the middle of the highway and, okay, we know better than that, but that is something, that's how we learn to interpret though. We learn to know what is good for us, what is good for others around us. So the questions you ask and the way that you take it in, there's a whole art in the interpretation. But the most important thing for Holly and listeners is we must keep our heart open, our mind clear, and we must begin to trust our connection to all that is. to the life around us, to how there's always help for us. There's always guidance, and we're connected to so much more than we have any idea about. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and just close up this for now, and how we do that. And then I can hear what maybe you experienced, Holly. Um, and just so you know, this can take more time. I just wanted to give you a taste of it, of this type of clairvoyant situation. Um, Now what I want you to do is go ahead, and I want you to take your screen, just kind of roll it up and send, and I send blessings and love to the screen, however you want to do that, in gratitude. And then I send it down its own grounding cord to the earth to be recycled. Okay. And then in my imagination, your imagination is very important when it comes to opening up to intuition in your heart, in the language of intuition. Um, because most times it's not verbal. Okay. Um, there's a table in front of you, like a folding table. There's a branch, a stick that you got from your walk on the trail. You're breaking your connection now with the flower, and that what you were focused on, so you can have healthy boundaries and let go. So break that over your knee with intention of just letting go. And then you have an old-fashioned phone. You hang that phone up. That lets go of the connection. And you send off a beautiful journal, and you put anything you want in there. A lot of times I'll put, like when I'm working for other clients, I'll put XOs and love and blessings and clarity for whatever they're needing at that time. And I slingshot it into the sky, into the heavens. And I imagine angels grab it and help that person, anything that they collect it, and it's out there. And then I fold that table up and send it on its own grounding cord to the center of the earth to be recycled into something helpful to the planet. Okay. I hope everyone's doing okay. I've gotten so used to doing this, but it could sound a little crazy for some people, but I hope you guys are doing all right. And so now we'll just slowly take a nice deep breath in, and then just exhale. And then slowly open your eyes and bring yourself back to the present moment. And I go through at least like a 3-minute process, clearing my energy, calling in healthy energy, Holly. And I do my prayers before I do every single session. And I always break the sticks and do all that for every single session. And if you're a Reiki practitioner, that's called dry bathing. I do that as well, just to let go of that person or that energy, so they can just be with themselves and I can be with myself. But how did you feel? Were you able to be aware of anything, Holly, or anybody listening?
Yeah, people feel free to put some comments in the chat if you'd like to describe your experience. And while people are doing that, wow, that was really powerful. It was
Did
the
it feel
first
like
time
too
I
much,
got something
Holly?
like that. No, it didn't
Okay,
feel like too much.
okay, good. Okay,
Maybe all that meditating, it just felt like going
okay.
to a meditative state, right?
Oh, good. Okay.
With the screen and a flower, and going into your heart and calming your mind is something I'm used to doing. So that was very familiar. I love the empty chair in the middle of your brain, and I'd never heard, you said something about if you have that chair in your brain, you that isn't the center of where your analytical thinking is. Did I understand that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was unique, and giving myself this sort of idea of, oh, there is this centered place where there is absence of it's not part of the thinking center, right? That's up here in the prefrontal
Right.
cortex.
Yeah.
So yeah, so moving to that space in a deliberate way, the way you led it, was really powerful. And then, so in my situation, the question I was asking was about this, new line of work for me, this heart mind alchemy and coaching, and kind of clarity on where it's going, and what it will be. And what I saw was I had picked a rose, a red rose, and I just saw it just open up in this huge bloom, which was very, you'll see if I look back at the video, I think there was probably a big smile on my face because I was very feeling very good about that. And then, yeah, and then I saw a whole bouquet, around it. So whether that's other people involved, that's how I interpret, but you're going to talk about interpretation, but that was the hit that I got, was, surrounded by lots of other helpers or other people I'm working with, which is
Oh, that's
wonderful.
beautiful. I love that. And yeah, then that's beautiful that you saw that. It excites me too, just because we all have the ability to see and to tap into things. And I can't tell you how it works, like how that happens, but it does. But yeah, and the interpretation is, you saw this, so that's clairvoyance for everybody, right? So you could see that bouquet and you could see that. And then you could you feel the energy around it too, Holly? Yes,
I
that would
could.
be clairsentience or empath, right? That I use those interchangeably. But those two skills are very present when doing this type of um, tuning in, But that flower is so helpful. And the grounding cord is also helpful to clear out anything that might be limiting you, or anybody, me, limiting us, that we're afraid of, and that's what the grounding cord is for. But I love that you saw that bouquet. It's beautiful. And sometimes I notice, sometimes when I'm doing a reading, when I'm done with a client, my whole face will be off like this. It's like no one's there, but I don't know. So hopefully I wasn't like doing that during that. But I love that. That was beautiful, Holly.
Well, thank you for leading us in that. That was a wonderful exercise
It's just
to
yeah, a little
get past
tool.
syndrome.
Yeah, everybody can use. And if ever you try that and you open up like that and nothing shows up, try asking a different question. Because I've noticed with people, for my clients, for myself, my family, my friends, sometimes if I try a different approach, a different perspective, a different question, it's almost like a portal opens up of information. It's almost like I sometimes I'll even hear, I always hear in this ear, it's like, you're asking the wrong question. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I hear that, like, as almost as clear, not as loud, but almost as clear as we're talking. Like, Monica, you're asking the wrong question. You're down the wrong path. Ask a new question. It's fascinating. It's amazing. So try different questions, different approaches, but remember when you look to take off your old glasses and set them aside, because no matter how much we've been meditating, and I know that there's masters out there, and but it's so easy to look through our own lenses of our past and our fears. And so just imagine glasses off and you put on new ones. But that helps a lot.
Okay, great. And so tell me a little bit about this, about trusting and interpreting from your perspective, and that sort of classic question, am I just making it up? Did I just make up the rose blooming and the other blooms? I'm not going to say that I did, but just let's say that
Yeah.
was something I was wondering. How do you
Oh,
know?
yeah. Well, that's just a great question, because I used to always be like, oh my gosh, I'm making this up. Um, I don't honestly know the answer completely, but here's how I've learned to trust. Um, because as things progress, in your body and the way it feels to you. And then a lot of times by in the physical realm, it will be proven true.
Mm.
So your bouquet, as your business starts to bloom, that bouquet is going to make so much sense to you, right? Not all the time are we able to be validated in the physical realm, but a lot of times we really are. It might come in a different form, um, you know, but a lot of times it will be validated, and it might not be validated like even within 6 months or a year. Sometimes it is the next day. Like I've experienced the whole um, I don't know, facet of time. But that's one way, is it
Mhm.
happens in your waking moments. And then other times it's not one of those things that, like, people might ask different questions, and it might be just one of those questions where in your body it's a felt sense of, kind of like a check, like check, or it resonates almost like a pitchfork ding, and you're like, ah. But you can just feel it. um,
Mhm.
and here's another thought for people too. Other ways intuition works is sometimes, and it's not just for me, it's for everybody. Um, Everybody has the ability. I think we're born with it as human beings. It's just if we open, if we cultivate it, But for a story, so I have gazillions of them, but I'll give you one. So um, this one's the most recent one. I kept seeing the number 111 everywhere for the last 2 months. 111 license tags, my receipts, the clock. Every time I look, there's been a lot of numbers recently, but then I just started. Okay, this has been too long. I'm gonna start looking this up. So I looked up 111, and people could say different things. I think there probably are different definitions online and all that. But
Mhm.
I looked it up, and what I got from it, and then from my sense and what information from the world was giving me, was you're missing something. You're not paying attention. You're looking in the wrong direction. So then I started opening my heart more. And then all of our clogs in our house got completely, our drains got clogged. We had to call the plumber. We had like three drains completely stuck and clogged. And then I said, oh my gosh, there's something to this. I don't dismiss that anymore. Like things like that, like over and over. And it's exciting because the universe is like, I'm trying to help you. Pay attention, Monica. And then my son, Will, Kevin, our son, he um, he had a blood clot, and we were in ICU. It's very rare, 18-year-old to have. It was his whole right leg, and it was very dangerous. Like the doctors had all things they were saying. I won't even say them now, but um, so the ones, and then the clogged drains, and then Will then started talking about how this we thought was a tight muscle. It was spreading. Like it seemed, he goes, Mom, it's moving. It's like it was in my glutes, but now it's in my leg. And then I heard in my ear, it's like, this is the 111. And I said, oh my God, it's a blood clot. And Kevin's like, oh my God, I think you're right. And then it was a blood clot. And thankfully we caught it. And I'm not saying that it was me, Holly. I don't mean to suggest that, but I think the paying attention and then talking to Kevin and then hearing Will's experience, put the pieces together, you're like, and we were so lucky that it worked out well.
Yeah. That's
But
an incredible story.
things
The
like things like that. And it's not just for me, Holly. Like when
Yeah.
people start to pay attention, and really don't be afraid to pay attention, and don't be afraid to trust yourself. So if I would have dismissed that, this could have been a whole different situation. And I'm also very thankful to God for talking to me. So that's how I feel. Like, Monica,
Mhm.
this is it. The 111s, they were everywhere. Holly, I couldn't even look to the side without seeing a 111.
That's
It was
incredible.
everywhere. And the doctor, we have a great doctor, but he's like, Monica, I want you to trust yourself because you're really intuitive. And he's really open to this stuff. So he's like,
Mhm.
but it is really unusual. Do you think you should sleep on it? And I said, well, I think we'll sleep on it. But then I couldn't sleep. Kevin's like, oh my God, we gotta. We got to just go and trust it. And it was a blood clot. It was this entire leg. So it was just like things like that's kind of dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
When things get really emotional for me and dramatic, I get like cold inside. It's weird. I get like this shiver thing happen. But it doesn't have to be that dramatic. It could be if you hear someone's name like 5 times and it's someone you know, call them up, see how they're doing. And sometimes I feel it in nature. Like when I'm on the trail, the wind will blow a certain way and I can't explain it. But then I'll just look up at the tree and it has an energy of somebody for me. And I'll call that person and they were having like the worst day. I can't explain how that works, but
Mm-hmm.
the wind can communicate, the birds, nature, um, trees, your friends, without even knowing it. Your family can just say something, and you'll be like, oh my God, I've been thinking about that all day. And then, you just got to trust yourself and dismiss nothing. So if your heart says over and over, I can't let this go, it's just on my mind, it's nagging. Um, like say it's um, something that's been bothering you and you need to tell someone, but it's been months and you just haven't brought it up because you're scared they might reject you, or they might think you're crazy, or they might just not want to be your friend anymore, and that's scary, that rejection. But I've had that happen too. And then it took me like 3 months to actually tell this person something. And they said, oh my God, Monica, I've been dealing with that so much. And it helps me so much that you had the courage to say it. And they said, I've been scared to say it. It's just like that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. I even do that. Like if I get a visual on somebody, I will frequently send them a text or, I'll call
Oh,
you randomly. I'll just like, you were on my mind. So I'm calling.
yeah. Holly, and you said that one day. And Holly, I was having such a hard day. And you texted me, and I was like, and we had just met pretty much. It was pretty soon, like a recent friendship. And I was sitting on the steps getting ready for a run, and I get the text from Holly. And I'm like, oh my God, Holly. I think I even said to you, thank you so much for calling me. I just really needed that. Like
Yeah.
you heard it. And it was just like, oh.
Yeah. I feel like it's, that's my sort of little way of trying to act on messages that I receive, and just reaching out to people that they're on my consciousness suddenly. It's like, oh, I feel like there's a reason I should connect with them. So, so I
So
will.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
perfect. And I think that's happened twice to us, like with you
Yeah.
calling, texting, but it's so powerful because there's so much more than what we see. And
Mhm.
and also not even just reading and knowing and like it being helpers for us, but also just like connecting to so much more. It makes me feel sometimes like I'm not alone here. When I feel lonely, or I feel sad, or I feel like I'm not enough, those types of things, it always shows me, oh my gosh, Monica, stop it. Stop all that nonsense. And I feel like the universe, and however you want to phrase it, it's always trying to communicate with us and have a relationship with us. That's so beautiful. And the more we open up to it, the more we open up to each other and the natural world and the spiritual realm. It's just
Mhm.
filled with beautiful love for us that just wants to, I feel like, be poured down on us, but we're like scared,
Mhm.
or I don't believe it, or I'm making it up. I think there's so much beauty there that we can take advantage of.
Absolutely. And really, the more we clear, and I've experienced this in my own meditation practice, like the clearer, the more receptive I become as a kind of open channel for, energy from the universe and really tapping into that, then it truly, like, the less disconnected I feel, the more connected, better way to say it in the positive, the more connected I feel to everything around me and all community, and that sense of separateness, it's starts to really dissolve, and yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful awakening process, right?
So it's so
Um,
amazing. And just, for everyone, just keep your hearts open. And even when you notice they start to close, because mine does too. Like if I get afraid or I feel like, trust things come up, I'm just like, we're okay, open back up again. Just keep coaching yourself. And I have to do it too. And, just it shows up in so many ways. It can show up in the simplest of things. And it's exciting to me,
Mhm.
you
It's
know.
ex-
And
Yeah.
it's empowering to everybody that they are a part of something so much bigger than themselves, and they are connected to that, and they can use that as part of their life, their lifestyle, and it's a beautiful thing, really.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a question come in from
Oh,
Bill, and so I'll go ahead
okay.
and share it with you. um, Bill said that he's familiar with so much of what you've talked about, but he hasn't carried it forward as such. He felt like he'd sort of missed a calling. And then he had so it's this comment and then a question. Does this awareness work for you in dreams also?
It absolutely does. I don't remember all my dreams. It seems like the ones that I really need to remember, they scream loud, and they are very present when I wake up. So I don't remember all my dreams, but it seems like the ones I need to remember, they won't let me forget.
Mm.
That's what I notice. And sometimes these dreams, several times, have happened in real life, like just happened like the next day. That doesn't always happen, but it's happened enough times to shake me to say, stop thinking this isn't real. This is real. So that's how I'd answer that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a very active dream self world as well. In fact, I feel like I'm often like I can feel the vibratory energy. This sounds woo-woo for people who
Yeah.
may not talk this way, but I feel
Yeah.
like there's a second life I'm living in my dream world that has a different vibration. And every time I go to sleep, I walk into that world. And I'm trying to learn to lucid dream and dream yoga. And that's all an active practice for me because it's so real for me. I mean, and when I meditate, I actually will often go back into that same energy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I think it's so powerful. I don't, I don't, I believe in that a lot. I definitely feels like sometimes I've dreamt so deeply that it felt like I was with that person. And then one time, now that we brought that up, I remember I was with this person in the dream, and then I saw this person later. It was a friend. She's like, it feels like I just saw you. That's what she said. And then I said, I saw you in my dream last night. She goes, that is so weird. But it's weird, but it's fun. And I think it probably happened,
Yeah.
honestly. I can't explain all that. I don't know all the ins and outs of all that, but I definitely am. It's not even just believing, it's experiencing.
Mhm.
It's such an experience that it's like more on the mystical side of things, because it's less about theory and it's less about rules and theory. It bypasses that and it becomes like an experiential encounter. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Well, if you're, into quantum fields and quantum potential, and we're all energy and we're interacting at all these different levels and these frequencies and time, there is no
Right.
present, there isn't no past or future. There's just now. Then,
Yeah.
what is happening on that level, at that energy level did happen. And
Yeah.
as much as this happened,
Yeah.
it's crazy to, it's hard to wrap your brain around. I think it's better to not wrap your brain around, you just feel it.
Yeah.
Feel
Oh,
the truth.
I agree, Holly. And the one thing I've been learning a lot it's still interesting for me, but when you read for other people and they're looking for clarity on things, I've noticed that sometimes certain people it's going to be super clear, and other times it's not as clear. And I'm learning to understand that people know what they need to know when they need to know it. And I still don't know all the answers to this, but I believe also that I'm learning that there's there's so much that's changing all the time. So we can get clarity and insight, but I don't consider myself a psychic or any of that. I call intuitive because it's intuitive, and I like to help people with insight and clarity, but it's not always an easy thing to know what's going to happen, and kind of grown out of needing to know. And I was really afraid, and younger I always wanted to know because I was afraid, but now it's kind of like we don't really need to know the answers. We just need to know what's our next step, you know? Then we can move. Then we can just be like, I don't really need, and why would we? I'm kind of starting to feel like, why would we want to know all the answers anyway? That would be not be as fun of life, right? But I think just to have clarity on the next step for ourselves and for people, and just even the feeling like your bouquet, right? It was a really vivid feeling of, okay, that felt really positive to me. I'm going to continue on this path. That was a really clear sign.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and how it felt to you really was what matters most,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your observation about knowing and feeling like you need to know, because to me that really brings an aspect of controlling and needing like controlling. And then that is really just down the path of duality, you know, and some spark world. And the more that we can surrender and trust in the process, and know that um, things are happening as they should. And maybe that one, if you, I'm sure somebody's, it's all you just need to know the next step, as you said. It's just one step at a time.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken me a long time to get there, but I'm learning, and it's so much more. I'm starting to find that it's more fun to be curious, and let's see what happens. Let's see what's meant to happen. And but it is nice to have insight and clarity on some things and help others with that. But yeah, I don't know. Did I answer Bill's question?
Yeah, I think you did. I heard
Okay,
very much that it works in your dreams.
okay.
And
Where did I go?
yeah, no, that's really good. And I see that it's just a little after 5, so it's probably a good place to wrap it up and
That
let
was
you
so much fun. Thank you,
breathing.
Holly.
Oh, I thank you so much for coming and joining and leading us, guiding us through that incredible intuitive experience. I enjoyed it tremendously. I'm sure our viewers did too. And I guess I would just love really quickly, like, if you had 1 or 2 tips to leave people with on tapping into your intuition, what do you think? What are those 1 or 2 things?
I would say just keep your heart open, your mind clear, and dismiss nothing.
Oh, that is so beautifully said. I love that. Heart
Simple.
opened, mind clear, dismiss nothing. I can remember that. 3
Hmm.
things.
Oh, the threes. There we are
The
again.
threes, yeah.
I do have 2 books I want to suggest to people if they want to work on this. Is first of
Yeah,
all,
please.
Clear Quiet Mind by Kevin Scheninger. Okay, he's my husband, but it's a great book. And it has practices in here that can really help practice to clear your mind. And I've used all of Kevin's techniques to do that. And this book, Spiritual Amnesia, can you guys
Mm,
see that?
I don't know if that one, spiritual amnesia. Okay.
It's by
Yep.
Lauren Sky, and the one of the exercises I did today was out of her book,
Okay.
and I did a 8-month class in all of this, and it's pretty powerful. Her work is amazing, and her book is. I just want to give her a shout out, and Kevin, because I use their stuff
Okay.
frequently.
Great. And then you offer classes. You're leading one right now, and maybe we'll
Yeah.
lead another one in the future for people who want to work with you more.
Yeah, so I'm doing a strengthening and trusting your intuition class. I'm closing the last week of the first class is Saturday, and then I'm going to start level 2 for that that group, and then start level 1 is some of the stuff we talked about today and some practices, and that'll start May 9th.
Okay. Oh, sign me up for your next course, level 1. I'd love to join.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Holly.
Yeah, thank you. And what's your website if people want to go learn more?
Yeah, my website is Energia. I almost forgot.
I'll type it in the show notes so
I
people
almost
know.
forgot what it was. Energia-transformyourlife.com. And every,
Energia-transformyourlife.com. Okay.
yeah,
Great. I thank you so much for your time, Monica. Thank
so
you so
fun.
much. It's just
Thank
really a
you.
blessing to have you here.
Hug.
Yeah, hug virtual. I've been doing a lot of these lately, right?
Yeah,
Getting used
I
to it.
know. Yeah.
Virtual hugs.
This is really
Um,
fun. It's so fun talking to you about it.
it's really fun. I love this topic. It's so much fun to talk to you about it too. So thank you. And this is HeartMind a Happy Hour. And I'm Holly Copeland. And this is, you can learn more about me and the work that I do at heartmindalchemy.com. I do coaching and classes. And yeah, you can learn more if you go to my website. So, all right. Well, have a good evening, everybody. Thank you, everybody who stayed and joined us. It was really fun.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yep,
Bill.
yep. Bill and Kiefer and everybody. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right.